All right, it's Friday. It's time for another Reddit reply. It's always a lot of fun going through Reddit and seeing the different questions that are out there and answering them. Really, I think today is all Marvel Champions we'll be doing because there's a lot of good Marvel Champions questions. But really quick, if you have not yet, make sure to go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/D20 Woodworking. That's probably what it should be. And if you want to join the live streams, come over to twitch.tv/D20 Woodworking. And finally, if you watch this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. Really helps out. All right, let's go check out Reddit. All right, so the first one is Gambit. When you play Royal Flush, do you get +1 attack on each of the 3 attacks, or do you get to pick how to distribute them among those attacks? Additionally, can you do all 3 attacks on the same enemy? So really quick, let's look over at Gambit. Maybe you should make them bigger. Okay, so just to put in perspective of what they're talking about with the +1, right? So throw D card is when you play an attack event, remove up to 3 charge counters from here. That event deals +1 for each counter removed. And then his Royal Flush ability is a 3-cost event. Place 1 charge counter here, deal 0 damage, 0 damage, 0 damage. So the way that this works is that it is +1 damage for each one. So if you removed 1 counter off of Gambit, Royal Flush would do 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, and you can split that up. You can put it on the same enemy. It doesn't really matter. It's just to an enemy. It's whatever you want. So the same enemy that you've been hitting over and over, or a different enemy. The one thing I'll note really quick is this action that says place 1 charge counter here. If you have 0 charge counters on Gambit, right, that attack does nothing. It does 0, 0, 0. What happens is you first get rid of your charge counters on Gambit, then you add 1 back to your card, and then it does the damage, right? So that's just important to note that like Royal Flush isn't going to add 1 you can use. It's replacing 1 you've already used, right? Just an important note there to know in general. Next up, Uncanny X-Force. Hey, folks, just a quick question about Uncanny X-Force. It reads, if each of your characters has the X-Force trait, each ally you control gets +1 thwart and takes -1 consequential damage after thwarting a side scheme. Is the +1 thwart only when I am thwarting a side scheme with an X-Force ally? Is it all time? So here's Uncanny X-Force, just so you can see it. If each of your characters has the X-Force trait, each ally you control gets +1 thwart and takes -1 consequential damage after thwarting a side scheme. It gets +1, the character gets +1 thwart. Flat out. It's not +1 thwart for a side scheme. It would say that specifically, right? So when they ask if is it only thwarting a side scheme, no, it would have to say you get +1 thwart for a side scheme or something like that, right? But it doesn't. It's +1 thwart and it takes the -1 consequential damage after thwarting a side scheme, right? So think of it as 2 separate things, not the same thing in general. So yeah, you get +1 thwart the entire time. -1 consequential damage is just if it's a side scheme. Okay, campaign wish list. What would you want as the next campaign, assuming the hero cycle following it would be related to it? We'd love to hear your ideas, wish list, whatever. For me, they want to see a Fantastic Four campaign. The heroes, they have Reed and Sue. The villains, Mole Man, Super Skrull, Maximus the Mad, Doom, Namor, Silver Surfer, and Galactus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a lot of villains. Campaign notes start off with a scenario that's like tower defense with Mole Man. Oh, that's that. Maybe I should read that again ahead of time next time. So they talk about different things. They talk about campaign rewards and stuff. Post campaign cycle heroes. They have a lot. Torch, the Thing, obviously. Some of the other ones are interesting. Black Bolt, I've heard of, and Karnak, I've heard of. Medusa. I mean, I've heard of Medusa. I don't think I've heard of like the hero Medusa, but whatever. So it's interesting what they say. A lot of people I'm probably gonna pick next wave is Apocalypse. Yeah, so that is important to note is the next wave is going to be X-Men related. So just after that, right? Just FYI, it's gonna be after that. A lot of people are gonna probably say Defenders, Planet Hulk, second Guardian, second Spider-Man is what I want. I want more Spider-Man stuff, so I hope they do it. And the next campaign to be announced. You know what's funny? And I know actually it's kind of funny that like only a few people are mentioning Defenders, Midnight Suns. There is a lot that they can possibly do, which is fascinating. So I do think that the next, I mean, obviously the next campaign is gonna be X-Men related. I think after that, I think Fantastic Four makes the most sense. I think doing a one-off makes the most sense. And then after that, doing kind of a longer campaign. I think the Defenders cycle can be a bit longer. I do think like Daredevil and Defender stuff is gonna be like their last like big hurrah. Not that the game's dying or anything like that, but I do think there is gonna be like Daredevil is like their one, not their one, but is like a one really wanted hero, massive among the community, and they're gonna have to like really pull out all the stops for that one. It's gonna be something really interesting and different. There's a lot of other good heroes that are still to be done, but I don't think that they're as wanted as Daredevil is. Like I do think Daredevil's gonna be like the last big thing. I think they were gonna do something special for that. So that's why I think it's still gonna be obviously X-Men next, Fantastic Four, maybe even Spider-Man stuff, and then Defender. I think Defender is gonna be their last like major thing. So we'll see though. All right, so next one is playing my first expert campaign with friends with health totals sticking between fights. If I have endurance and end with a higher life total, does that transfer to the second fight, or do you reset down to your max HP? You reset down to your max HP, right? So I think it says in the Red Skull campaign that it does that. The one weird question I've never had a real answer for, because I've heard it both ways, is if like, let's say you have 10 hit points and you finish with 13, right? Because endurance adds 3. If you finish that game with 13, then it would go down to 10 for the next game, right? Can't start higher than what your max is. But if you were, let's say, at 9 life, right, and you get rid of endurance and it goes down to 6, your next game, I don't know if it's at 6 or 9. I honestly don't know that rule, and I've never easily found it. I'm sure it's there. I'm sure I just haven't easily found it. But yeah, that'd be interesting. Let me know if you know the answer to that rule, because that's one that I get a couple times and I've never easily found. So if you know the page number in the rule book, that'd be even more helpful. But anyway, if you end up with a higher mount, you do go back to your max life, right? So it's just whatever your max life is, just resets back to that. Which hero is the most fun to deck build for? Sometimes I get more excited for deck building than playing the characters. Think about the potential and combinations for all aspects. While some characters can be fun to play, their deck building just isn't as exciting. So here are their favorites: Spider-Woman, Rocket, Domino, Cyclops, Psylocke. So, for me, what's interesting is I feel like, okay, this is probably a weirder, larger topic. Generally speaking, I think deck building is getting worse. Like, okay, how to phrase this. So when I think of deck building, I think of like some awesome combos I can do with like aspect cards that like do some really cool different things. I feel like that's not a big part of Marvel Champions anymore. I feel like because gray cards or basic cards are so strong that it's like I use aspect cards to supplement the hero and the basic cards. Right? And I don't know if anyone else feels like this or if it's just me, but it feels like early on we were deck building a lot to like make an aspect really good and whatever. And there's kind of general metas or buckets that you're filling with each one, right? So for example, with Justice, right, there's like the big thwarter, or there's the confused based deck, or there's one of those ally based decks in every single aspect, or there's now controlling like side schemes, but like you're just pulling, if it feels like you're just pulling a lot of aspect cards to feed off of that. And maybe that's because I'm not a good enough deck builder anymore to like really get the full feel of that nowadays. But that's what it feels like. So like same with leadership, right? Leadership recursion decks have always been a thing, always will be a thing, and nothing's changed that really. Right? Like recursion decks nowadays are kind of the same, and like people don't deck build that anymore, but you also don't really have to. Now there are more things you can do in leadership with like all out attacks and different things like that, and they have their place, sure, but I feel like I'm building that and then can put any hero to it. Like, does it make sense? Like, there's very few times I feel like a hero lines up with an aspect and deck builds really well, right? Like I either deck build off the heroes cards, and most of the time it's basic cards with a few aspect cards, or I'm deck building off of the aspect cards and like I'm just plug and play the hero. And it never feels like those two things line up well together. Like it's never really felt like that for a while. The exceptions for me are always Spider-Woman, because Spider-Woman can mix and match aspects. I feel like there's a broader range of cards, and maybe that's the problem. There just isn't enough variety in the cards. I don't know. But Spider-Woman feels like I can do more there. Same with like Gamora, right? Even if Gamora can only pull 6 cards, like which direction I go with those 6 cards is kind of fascinating. Adam Warlock, I've never been a big fan of deck building for Adam Warlock, but it's at least an option with like building out 4 different aspects. So for example, Domino. I love Domino. I think she's amazing. I don't care what aspect I'm using. I'm using whatever aspect and a few of those cards to supplement her cards and her basic gray cards. Like realistically, like protection, I'm giving her heal and ready up cards. Aggression, I'm giving her a couple more attack cards. Leadership, I don't think I really play her in leadership. And then justice, I'm giving her a couple of thwart cards. And like that's it. Like I don't feel like I'm deck building anymore. And I don't know if that's just me and then my play style, because I know a lot of other people build out more. So let me know if you're different. But I do think ever since like grays kept getting more and more powerful, roughly around the time of the double gray, whatever that card is called, or the power in all of us or whatever it's called. Ever since around that card, it feels like it's aspects, like they're important, but you don't deck build them with as much. I don't know. Again, maybe it's just a me thing. But anyway, as far as what I enjoy deck building with, it's Spider-Woman and Gamora are still like my 2 favorites, I would say. And like they say Cyclops, which is interesting. Because like again, it feels like I'm just drawing in a bunch of heroes then and then just building off or allies, I'm sorry, building off of all those allies. Like it doesn't feel like I'm deck building. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that's just a random thing I've kind of noticed. So all right, so this is the top fives. Now, I thought this was kind of an interesting idea. So top 5 questions. So we're going to go through each one, and I'm going to do it kind of off the cuff here. So top 5 rules that you got wrong at first. So number 1 by far was I had in my mind you had to defeat stage 1, stage 2, then stage 3. And it's actually not that hard to do because the build out like was much easier. It just was a really long game. And sometimes on stage 3, you just got wrecked. But generally speaking, it was easier because like the hard part with expert with stage 2 to stage 3 is that you kind of have to like get going really fast. So it's actually not that hard to play. It just took a long time. And it just felt like forever. And like, why would anyone play this game? But that was like the number 1 rule I got wrong for like the longest time. I still get take damage and deal damage wrong all the time. I'm not even going to try to recite it from memory right now, but take and deal, I hate that rule. I hate it with a burning passion. I think deal, you can deal up to, you don't have to deal all the damage, but you have to take all the damage. If I remember correctly, that's how it works. I can't stand that rule. I can't stand that made a difference with that. It's whatever. It's a whole big thing, but not a fan of that rule. But I get it wrong all the time. So it's not even that first, but it's a rule I get wrong all the time. This isn't really a rule, but I got response windows wrong a lot. So like, for example, Miss Marvel is a perfect example of this where, you could play like Turn the Tide as a justice card. And after she thwarts and clears out the main scheme, you can play Turn the Tide and then use exhaust Miss Marvel to bring it back. And then you can use it again because the response window is so long. Like Miss Marvel was an eye-opener in this game to like learn response windows. It was absolutely phenomenal. So it wasn't really a rule I got wrong per se. I just didn't know the rule with the response windows. Past that, I don't know if there's main rules I get wrong other than that. Like there's obviously little small things that will trip me up and I need to like double check. But I don't know if there's really other rules that like I consistently get wrong. I'm sure in multiplayer with call on actions I've gotten wrong before because I don't play a lot of I don't play a lot of multiplayer, so call on actions always are like weird. And like it's not that hard, but I still get it wrong. And in the beginning, I used to get interrupt and responses wrong a lot. But I've learned a trick with that that's helped me out in like 99% of the cases. But yeah. Top 5 hero packs to get when starting out. I think I think number 1 for most people should be Captain America. I think Captain America is really strong and really good and really worth getting. He's just fun. He's a fun all-around hero. I know most people would say Doctor Strange. I don't think so. I think he's too boring. I think you're just going to throw him in the trash where he belongs. So I wouldn't recommend that. I think Scarlet Witch was a lot of fun to get out in the beginning. Quicksilver has really grown on me recently, and I would say Quicksilver's probably up there. I don't know. There's something special about Thor. Even though Thor was bad in the beginning, like there's just something special about him. Like he always felt fun to play. And I think that's why I personally stuck around with Thor for so long. He was just fun. So he's up there. And then probably like Venom. Venom's really good. He's also like kind of spidery, kind of in the Guardian. So there's like two options there. I mean, there's not really a web warrior or anything, but I think he's a lot of fun in general. And I think he's really good for like new players. And I think he does some interesting things that can like open up your eyes to the game for new players. So those would probably be my top 5. Top 5 heroes you most enjoy playing. Let's do right now, not of all time. So right now, what I most enjoy playing, like in my personal time for the past like a month, let's say, what I've enjoyed playing. Domino's number 1 by far. It's not even close. Domino's up there. I've been messing around with some Phoenix action some more. Now with Psylocke, Psionic cards coming back in. I've been messing around with that more, and I always enjoyed Phoenix, so that's been good fun. Cable, I've been messing around with a bit more because now we're getting more player size schemes. So each time a new player size scheme comes out, I kind of want to like mess with it with him and see what works and what doesn't work. So I've enjoyed that. I'm messing now back with Web Warriors because I always loved the Web Warriors. So I've been playing a lot more Spider. I will say there's one good thing. I know my review of Psylocke was kind of like down and whatever, but I do compare Spider kind of to Psylocke very loosely in like the resources and building out and whatever. So I've been playing more Spider, which has been really fun. I really enjoy her. She's a tough one to still like wrap your head around, but she's a lot of fun. And then Gwen Stacy, I've been playing a lot of Gwen Stacy too. I've been forcing myself not to play her in protection because I don't want to like get pigeonholed into that aspect, and it's kind of a fun challenge, and it's really neat and interesting. And aggression is a lot what I've been doing with her recently. It's really good, really fun. Top 5 scenarios you most enjoy playing. I assume this is overall, not like recently. So I don't know. I still enjoy playing Thanos. I still think Thanos is a lot of fun. Red Skull's been a lot of fun too with the side schemes and stuff. So that's been fun. Been messing around with Red Skull a lot recently. Ultron has made a comeback for me. I really enjoyed playing Ultron recently. And then let's see. Magneto is probably still like the hard one I play a lot now. And then the biggest one that I save for last, the biggest one is Juggernaut. I've been playing a lot of Juggernaut. I've kind of like figured him out, right? But he is so much fun. He's such a well-designed villain, and I have to like purposely not play him so that I don't get burned out, because I know I will be burned out playing him. So that's been like a weird thing of what I've had to do. So top 5 deck archetypes that you most enjoy playing. I don't even know if there are any now. Right, because right now I'm in the phase of, okay, each hero, I want to see what the hero can do, and I want to lean into the hero's strengths. A lot of time with deck archetypes, I feel like that's what I do when I'm getting bored of a hero, or of heroes in general, is that, okay, let me just like build out whatever and then throw a random hero and see if it works, or what hero might I think works with it. So right now, there really isn't any right now that I'm enjoy playing. What I will say to it, though, is recently, I've always been a big Justice player, and I would say recently I've been playing a lot more of aggression, because there are more ways to thwart now through aggression. There's more ways to heal now through aggression. There's more interesting cards for aggression. So I've been doing aggression a lot more, and it's a lot of fun. There's some really good feeling about just doing crazy amounts of damage. Like, it feels good. So I've been playing a lot more aggression in general. So I know that's not really answering the question. I can't really think off the top of my head what archetypes I'm doing, because again, I'm building to the hero, not really a deck archetype anymore. So that's kind of what I was talking about before in the last thing. But yeah, let me know your top five things. I'd be interesting to kind of hear about that from you all. All right, release schedule guess. It seems like to release things with the release schedule of TV shows and movies. So they guess Apocalypse, X Factor campaign with the release of Deadpool 3 movie. Sure. Fantastic Four campaign with the MCU movie. Sure. Defenders Daredevil campaign with the release of Daredevil Disney show. Is this roughly what I said? Oh, no, I put Spider-Man in after Fantastic Four. It's interesting that they do this, and like, I'm sure there's some validity to this, that there's like a rough idea of like releasing, because it just makes sense. It's good marketing. I know it's not very tight, but it's close. I still think Spider-Man, but it's a good guess. It'll be interesting to see if that's what it is. We'll have to remember this in this video. Just keep in mind my videos for 2 years out from now. Just remember them. One thing you love / hate about the game. This is a love minus situation where you worked out next player turn. You can defeat the villain, but you turn a treachery boost card that results in your defeat. Usually after alter ego villain attacks your cards. Alternatively, the jeopardy of turning over a card in which 3 boosts will be game over, but 2 or less is victory. Okay, so love-hate thing. So my love-hate thing, oh god, it's gotta be the same. I was gonna say it's easy to pick out a thing I love and pick a thing I hate. I like, okay, this is gonna sound weird. I like how modular and custom, I like how this game can appeal to so many audiences, right? That this game can go in so many directions and be so good for so many different types of people because it makes the game more popular as a whole, right? So what do I mean by this? This game can be played 4-player and be fun, 3-player, 2-player, 1-player, right? For any of them. And there are heroes and situations that are really good at multiplayer. And there's heroes that are really good at solo, right? And there's some heroes that are really good at both of those things. And then there's some situations where, you can build out crazy decks and do lots of build out with heroes, right? And you can make this hero board that's massive and amazing. And there's other heroes that are really good at like being really quick to win, right? Or just like their rushing strategy. And yes, you can kind of do other strategies with those type of heroes, right? But like they're generally good at one thing. I really like that flexibility in this game, but at the same exact time, you end up with situations where, okay, let's say you don't like X-Men, right? And again, those people do exist. They've messaged me, especially about older videos of mine. And they're like, I've had to skip this entire cycle because like I just can't stand X-Men. I'm not an X-Men fan. And if that's the case, like all of a sudden a game that you love about Marvel Champions is just kind of like to the wayside for like a year or two, right? And now to be fair, X-Men has brought people into this game, which is really cool. But there's also those people that just say like, oh no, I'm here for just X-Men stuff. And then once that's gone, I'm Audi 3000. Like I'm just done. So there's that side of it, right? For me, there are heroes that are really good in solo, right? They're really good in solo and they're a lot of fun in solo. And then there's heroes that were more geared toward multiplayer, right? They were more geared toward multiplayer. And because of that, can I make them work in solo? Yeah, I can, but it's a lot of work and it's just not quite as fun. It's not really my play style. And speaking of play style, like again, I have a very like kind of tempo build out. Like I do things a little quicker than most people, but not to the point of rush strategy. If there are heroes like Psylocke, where I do think Psylocke needs a lot of build out to be fun and interesting and good, that's not my play style, right? And I'm happy it exists. I'm happy that it gives people those alternatives, but it seems that time, like it just kind of stinks of like that's not up your alley. So it's one of those weird things that like it's great that this game is so conducive to so many different things and so many different types of players, and it gets so many people into the hobby. But when you find your niche and you like collecting things like I do, it kind of stinks because you're going to end up with a lot of things that just like aren't for you. And I mean, that's okay. I'm not saying that they have to change anything, but it is kind of like this weird thing that like, it just, I know I'm not the biggest X-Men fan in general. So a lot of this stuff, like I don't really care about, like it's fine, but I don't really care about. But again, these heroes that are more build out heroes, they're not really for me. Deadpool, I assume, we don't know yet, it's going to be more of a rush style hero. I don't mind doing rush, but I don't want to do it all the time, right? So like Angel, I'll come out with a review of Angel soon enough. And I like Angel, and he's very up my alley of how he works, right? And what he is. So it's just, that's kind of like my love-hate thing. I love that it can be for everybody, but at the same time, like if you're for everybody, you're for nobody. Does that make sense? Yeah, kind of. If you know what I mean. That's my only like love-hate thing I would say about this game. All right, final question. They have an interrupt question. When this is Mockingbird on Hawkeye. Does this interrupt happen before dealing a boost card to the enemy? So it says it's an interrupt when the villain initiates an attack against you. Spend 1 resource of any type and return Mockingbird to your hand. Prevent all damage from that attack. Generally speaking, interrupt happens, before the thing, response after the thing. Remember that and you're generally good. So, right? So when the villain initiates an attack, right? It's the beginning of the attack. When they initiate it, it's the attack, right? Just think of it like the attack. You're doing the thing before the attack. So it's before you deal a boost card to the enemy, right? It's before all that stuff. You would still do the attack, but you're just not taking any damage from it, if that makes sense. So you still do the attack, but you just prevent all damage from the attack. That makes sense. Hopefully that helps out. Hopefully that's easy. But generally speaking, interrupt before, response after. Hopefully that helps. And also really quick, because somebody else brought this up because I read down a little further. And this is a good point where so not all the damage from the attack is nullified. This is an important note. Okay, so if an enemy is attacking you, right, and they flip over a boost card and they flip over the star, right, and it's a thing that gives you damage, that's not the enemy attack, right? So if it's like one of those things that says like give you 2 indirect damage or something like that, you would take the indirect damage, but then like the main attack itself, you'd be preventing all damage from that attack. And just to bring this up, they discussed it here. Boost abilities are not considered as damage from an attack. So something like Mockingbird, Hawkeye Ally won't protect you from damage from a boost ability, but triggers the Mugen Goblin or triggers like Mugen Goblin will also not trigger from boost ability damage. So hopefully that makes sense. So the boost ability is also adding icons to the actual villain attack. Then yes, it would prevent it because you're calculating the total amount, right? It's not dealing damage; it's calculating onto it. So that's a weird, quick thing to note, right? Just a quick side note that I realized I probably should have put in there because I might confuse people. But yeah, so it won't stop all the damage. You still do the attack, right? Don't cancel the attack. That's also important to note. Like even though you're playing this before boost cards come out, you still have to go through the action because you're not canceling the attack. The attack is still happening, right? I know that's kind of weird and confusing, but hopefully that all makes sense. Well, thank you for taking the time to watch all this. I always enjoy doing this. Really quick, I've started a new news series. It just started. We're gonna have a new video hopefully come out on Monday. It's me being as objective as possible, right? There's not any of my opinions, nothing else like that. It's just me talking about the news as objectively as possible. And the last one I did was AI art and board games and some other stuff. It's right here. Make sure to check it out and support that video. I would greatly appreciate it. Hit the like button, all that fun stuff. Hit the like, subscribe, all that fun stuff on this video. See you all next time.